Hello and welcome back to the channel. Now in this video I had a chat with the founders of Plasmo, which is a new framework for building browser extensions, and they have a lot of exciting features planned as well. Here's a quick snippet of what they are creating and how they can help.
Can help productionize an extension. We can help test an extension, sort of make sure that it's useful. Like in this case here, right, we're making it so that you can push updates very quickly to see like what users like, what they don't like, and so on without having a review process. And then eventually, you finally build something really cool and you want to show it to the world. Now we have browser platform publish, and this is the sort of CI/CD to roll out to all the different web stores.
So now let's actually get into the discussion. First I asked how Plasmo got started.
Why Plasmo, right? Why not all these other ways to do stuff? And I think like the reason we made Plasmo, I think it's very similar to the reason why people want to use Plasmo, is because we took a look around to see kind of what's out there, and we basically had to build an internal version of Plasmo to get to a state where our Chrome extension can be thought of as a modern like front end sort of stack. So like getting in TypeScript, React, all the fancy bells and whistles. So we put together like a concoction of like a nice open source tool here, and then like a cool like technique here, like how do you inject a shadow DOM into the page and make sure the styles don't leak, and like spending a couple days figuring that out. And by the end of it, we sort of had this like Chrome extension that was functional, and it had this like nice framework behind it. And we thought, it might be cool if we actually take these things that we built and then just open source it and create a cohesive framework around it, so other people don't have to kind of figure out like spend like a couple of days figuring out how shadow DOMs work and how styles shouldn't leak, and how do we get environment variables in there? How do we like make sure that all these things kind of just work rather than having to research and figure it out? And at the same time, like we saw that there were projects that were attempting to do this, but one of the things that we were thinking about a lot is we sort of had this background from front end, and one of the things that we use a lot is Next.js, and they had this declarative way of building kind of front ends. So you would literally write a file on the pages directory, and then you name it index.tsx. All you do is export a React component, and then it will just figure out the routing for you, and it will just work. It will set everything up for you. You don't have to like mess with like webpack configs and then like figure out all this stuff. So that was kind of the principle behind Plasmo, which was like um, we don't want you to think about a manifest JSON file at all, because that's all imperative. You're telling Chrome exactly how to like interface with your files, whereas that should be the job in our point of view of a framework like Plasmo. So what you do with Plasmo is you just write these files, so like content.tsx, you export a React component, and then Plasmo will understand based on that file name, like, hey, this is a content script. The developer wants me to mount this content script onto the page. And what do they want to mount? They want to mount this React component that they are exporting. So we try to like come up with this different way of approaching Chrome extensions, which is very much focused on front end, like modern front end stack, like React, Vue, Svelte, as well as some other UI frameworks that we're thinking about. And then at the same time, this declarative model where the framework is sort of the middleman, and you don't have to mess with like configs and things of that nature.
So Plasmo is a fairly new framework. Next we started to talk about how long they've actually been going and their growth so far.
Yeah, honestly, it's been crazy because we so we had this other Chrome extension that we were building. It was like the security thing, and we wanted to see if we can like build a business around it, but it didn't end up happening. So we were like, okay, let's take this tech, right? That's what I talked about. That was about in like May, and I believe that we put out a Hacker News post, I believe in like early June, and like before that Hacker News post, we had like 11 stars on GitHub, and like it was not very well known. And then all of a sudden, like we ended up getting like 4,000 stars, and it was just insane. Like, so yeah, we haven't been around so long, but we're kind of constantly like improving the framework and like building cool stuff all the time, whatever people ask us on our Discord server.
So as Plasmo is an open source framework, I asked if they're still accepting new contributors and what this process is actually like for people wanting to get started and help.
One of the things that Lewis and I are both like open source people. In college, we went to college together, so we took a bunch of open source classes at our school. Where we were very fortunate to have that, and we've always had this like ethos of open source and like open building. I think also like our kind of entire engineering log is public. So like Lewis posts on there. Like so like Lewis is a big fan of Star Trek, so it's kind of like a captain log. So if you look through it, we have like an entire like timestamps, and then like Lewis is talking as though he's on the captain log. So yeah, we try to be really open. And yeah, like we've gotten a bunch of really great contributors and really fortunate. Got the README translated in a couple of languages, so hopefully that will help more developers. But yeah, definitely.
Now, one of the most exciting things that Plasmo have created is the ability to publish straight to like the Chrome Web Store and Edge without having to actually manually take the zip file and upload it yourself. They've integrated this all into their GitHub Actions. So I asked how this works and what people can do to use this and if it's ready yet.
That's actually one of our first open source project before the framework actually. So yeah, one of the hurdles that we had when we were building out our extension was to publishing to the store, and we actually want to make sure that we have the CI/CD pipeline to get that all done, so we can just push code and get it up to the store, right? And I think one of the things that we realized is that publishing process is actually a pain in the butt, because the store would take about 7 days or 2 days. Back then it was 7 days to finalizing the review, right? So it's not like you're gonna push the code and you'll be done. You actually have to push the code and finger crossed, waiting for the reviewer to approve, so it actually can get out. Yeah. So, but anyway, what we have so far in the framework is a GitHub action. So it's a GitHub action that is just it basically consuming a GitHub action that we created, we published before, called browser platform publisher, shorthand for BPP. So we're using BPP to we have a config file that you store as a GitHub secret, and it has all the credentials you need to publish to Chrome, Mozilla, and Edge. Our Edge API is actually the first kind of client API for Node.js. Yeah, because we made it right on the day we released it, right on the day that they released the beta of the API. So we were the first to support that as well. And then the action, yeah, the GitHub action has also received a lot of contribution from other people.
Now, one thing that I'm sure a lot of people will be looking to know is if they actually support manifest version 3. So we asked if they have this support yet, and also how they interpret the manifest file within Plasmo.
Yeah. So we started with so the idea behind the framework was like, because we were building out that extension, it was all MV3. So we started with MV3, and as we continued building it out, we kind of thought like, MV3 is sort of where everything's going. So let's just like let's just have all our resources building really cool like flows in MV3, so people can build awesome stuff there. And we don't want to spread ourselves too thin, because it's just me and Lewis. But more and more people kept asking like, hey, when are we going to get the Firefox support and stuff like that. So it was at that point where we were kind of like, okay, we were going to like delay this a little bit, but let's just go with building out this this like manifest version 2 kind of support. So we actually, the way we think about it is like, we don't really have like a manifest version 2 or manifest version 3, but it's more like a Plasmo sort of version. So we kind of try to abstract away the concept of a manifest file. So that way, like if you're building it into a target and your target is like Firefox MV2, then like like Plasmo, in the best case, like obviously there are like edge cases, it will try to build like specifically for that target. So it'll take a look at your code, and then basically it'll build a Firefox MV2 version. And then if you want to say Chrome MV3, it'll try to build a Chrome MV3 version and stuff like that from the same code base.
So did you just abstract all of that out, and you can almost, that made me think almost like when you're like exporting a video, you just choose the file format and you don't have to really think about anything else.
Yeah, the one tricky thing is like the two like versions are sort of there's like lossy kind of transfer, because like there are certain features MV3 has, MV2 doesn't, and vice versa. So there's always going to be like, you might be using an MV2 only feature. So like there's certain times like that. So it's not exactly like 100% perfect, but which we try to do like our best to kind of, one of the things that we want to have in the future is sort of like even like a little alerts or like to-dos to the developers saying, hey, this is an MV2 only thing and you're building an MV3 target, like maybe you should like add some certain logic and stuff just to guide the developer as well. So that way people can build sort of like write once, run everywhere kind of thing. Yeah.
Next, I asked if it was possible to show a quick walkthrough of how to use Plasmo. Just basically how to set up a project, what this looks like, and the different parts of the command line you need to be able to get started with the framework.
A walkthrough of how we would work with Plasmo. So usually, so when people want to create a new Plasmo project, right, you simply do so with PN. So we're running on top of the npm and like Node.js ecosystem. So with Node.js, you have either npm or pnpm or yarn, and these package manager has a convention of using a create command, the create subcommand of these package manager. So we have a create Plasmo kind of a command here that people can use. But let's just do with the basic flow first. So the basic initialize it flow. You run pm create plus ash, and then you tell it, hey, what's the name of this project? But give me a sec. I want to create inside this folder, actually miscellaneous folder. Yeah. All right. So let's do it again. Create Plasmo. So by default, it just gives you a random name. So it's not going to match your files. Let's do that. That's fine. But you can name whatever you want. And so it will grab all the dependencies, installing everything for you to start your extension. By default, there's only a pops up the TSX file. All right, let's get inside. So by default, you have a pops up the TSX file. Let's just code it. So let's open the code editor. So here we have a pops up TSX React component, which export default React component. And this is very much the basic of how the developer who want to have just a pops up extension would need for Plasmo. And then what they do after that is simply they'll be on the terminal running pm dev. So on the terminal, they run pm dev. What pm dev does is basically it will run the dev script inside package.json, right? And in package.json, we have Plasmo dev. So for people who have used like maybe Next.js or Byte, this should be familiar. We have a command that runs the dev subcommand of that package. And so basically pm dev would run Plasmo dev internally. And so when you run that, so Plasmo will take the project and kind of creating the whole bundle for you. So let's say extension reload in 4 seconds. So in here in the build directory, you see there's a Chrome mv3-dev. So dev is a dev version. The dev version actually have source map embedded inside the file as well. The production, you can choose to have source map for maybe because on Opera, for example, you actually need the source map for the reviewer. Some store they don't care. Some store they don't care. Then yeah, so when you build, you can actually supply a flag nodes, actually. So build source map is disabled by default, but you can enable it by doing like source map like that if you need to. Yeah.
So is it in the build command where you would choose your targets as well, or is that separate?
It's actually yes. So you would specify target like that. Yeah, target like Chrome MV2, Chrome MV3, or Firefox MV2. So in the FAQ, there should be a section saying what are the official supported browser target. And right now we have Chrome MV3 and Firefox MV2, and then all the Chromium base should work as well. So
nice.
And so you can specify the target flag for both the dev, for both for both Plasmo dev and also Plasmo build as well. The Plasmo build also have a zip flag, so that if you need to create a zip bundle, you can just supply the flag and it should work out of the box for you create the zip file. Yeah, like one of the things that was annoying for me when making the zip, right? If I have to do it manually, is the manifest has to be at root. So you actually have to go inside the disk folder and highlight every file, right? And then create the zip file. That's so annoying. But so with Plasmo build and with the zip flag, it does all that for you. Like the manifest where it should be, and all of the bundle file are flat in the zip, and so it goes straight to the store. So inside the Bootstrap project, there's actually a workflow GitHub action already called submit YAML, and it basically does just that. It check out the project, it use pm to install all of your dependencies, and then it do pm build zip, and then it run the BPP action, which take the zip file that we created with the secret, which you have to set up. You have to set up all the credential secret, which is just a JSON file inside your GitHub kind of secret, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, so for a normal developer getting started, then they would only really need to have locally the dev command, and then they can just push that straight to GitHub, and everything else is just handled by the GitHub action.
Precisely, yes. Well, there are some caveat when working with like Chrome. I think mainly Chrome store. For the Chrome store, you have to publish manually once before you can actually get the CRX ID and so on that has been assigned to you. But once that's done, once you have to do it manually once, then the action should work for you. But yeah, we had a few people had the same question about like how the first time they did it doesn't work. Well, yeah, because you don't have the CRX ID assigned yet, so you have to do it manually first once.
So there's a lot to break down here, and there's so many different things that you can do with this framework, and even publishing to the web stores. So here we go through the different parts of their documentation and all of the examples they showed here and where you can find them. I'll also add links in the description to all of these areas as well.
Yeah, we actually, so the documentation has a section, right, for each of those kind of elaborate example, like for example, like the Stripe example. We have a whole write-up here for about how to integrate Stripe, so you can actually have like payment for your kind of user on using an extension. That's actually PCI compliant, right, which is a very important part of having a payment system. You have the Tailwind, Superbase, like the write-up on how to integrating the authentication with Superbase, and then Stripe-based authentication as well. We actually have a whole blog post dedicated to that on our blog. So that our documentation, the quick start section, will have a lot of this kind of elaborate example, and then we also have an example directory, repository. So on our GitHub, we have an example repo that has every single kind of example that people have access to, make an example that we think would be useful for us as we build our framework. So like you can see, like with emotion, for example, you want to use emotion, the style, emotion in the CSS in JS style library, or you want to use like MUI, material UI kind of framework for your UI. So we have a lot of this example, and the cool thing is, Plasmo will actually allow you to try out the extension too by using Plasmo create, ppm create Plasmo, and then let's say you want to use what I don't know, pick one. Which one would you like to see?
How about Superbase?
Yeah, with Superbase, right? So as long as we have that example in there, you simply supply it as a flag. So you have to append the 2-, and it should basically create a project, clone the Superbase project for you. Oh yeah, you have to supply the name too. So okay, we'll just use default name here, and it will just do just that. It will basically fetch the example for you and apply all of the config necessary to set up the Superbase project for you.
One of the things that interests me the most about Plasmo is what they're creating next, which is test flight for browser extensions. So this is basically the way for you to be able to develop and work with testers without having to go through the Chrome Web Store review process, and also a way for you to sort of deliver what you're building directly to people without having to send zip files and worry about making sure people can actually download this. So it basically works exactly like the web store, where they can just click download and access this. So we looked into this a little bit more, and I had some questions here, and they provided a quick demo on what this actually looks like right now. It's not available yet, but here's more information on what they're creating.
Let's dive into the problem that, so previously you were talking about the problem of you want to test our example before you wanted to go to the published store, right? Because there might be an error and stuff like that, right? The problem is, how do you test it, right? Because you kind of want to, so either you test it, you send a zip to a bunch of people, right? You hope there's a test flight solution for browser extension. So that is basically what one of our SaaS kind of a solution is, which is, so we call it Itero for iteration, but it's basically the first staging environment for browser extension. We basically use the internal kind of mechanism of how Chrome policy work with extension to actually make our own extension store, but mainly for developer. So think of it as a test flight for Chrome extension. You would basically upload a new extension, which create extension entry here. You would then either so let's go to this kind of a page, right? This kind of installation page. So here is like kind of an installation page for this extension for my developer, for my kind of like my tester, my beta tester. They would go to this page. They would get one of these installer. What this installer does is they basically modifying the Chrome policy so that they can actually accessing this extension.
It enables their Chrome to allow basically trust our web store, not just the Chrome web store. So then our web store can basically act just like the Chrome web store, but because we know that you're giving this to internal testers and so on, we actually don't have a review process. So every push goes straight to all your users, all your testers rather.
So you don't need to worry about zip files, you don't have to be sending them anywhere, like downloading them across emails or anything like that. It just sends it straight to them.
Yeah, because
it uses the same mechanism as Chrome, the update mechanism. So we're on plasmo.com. So if you are interested in the product stuff, you can kind of join our waitlist. Otherwise, framework is free and open source. And yeah, feel free to use it, pnpm create Plasmo, and you should be ready to roll. Docs.plasmo.com takes you straight to our docs, and it should have all the information you need to get started building stuff with Plasma.
Amazing. Thanks so much for
Okay, yes, we ran out of a bit of time at the end there, but it was great to chat with the founders of Plasmo and seeing what they're creating here, which I think is going to be really exciting as they grow, and it's going to be very useful for developers, not only for building extensions, but also for the wider sort of community when it comes to actually testing with people and building up an audience when you're actually looking to release your extension. So I think that's a big gap there that they're going to be helping with. As I said, I'll add links to all of these different areas in the description. If you have any questions about Plasmo, please leave them in the comments and I'll be sure to share these with the Plasmo team. And I'll be looking to make another video soon, follow-up video on this, actually creating an extension with Plasmo and exploring this a little bit more. I hope you found this video useful and I'll see you in the next one.